strong people, Kalle Beck here from StartingStrongman.com, and today I'm going to be doing my thoughts. I'm going to be giving you my thoughts and recap on the Brian Shaw Classic that just took place. Overall, great contest. If you haven't watched it yet, go to club.shawstrength.com. It's $8.99. It's very good. Highly recommend buying it. I paid my hard-earned money to watch it and thoroughly enjoyed it. So there's going to be spoilers. So if you don't want them, click off, go watch that. Then come back to hear me give you my thoughts from my closet. So Brian Shaw Classic, when I heard about this, it was a little, just like everything this year, you get kind of worried if it's going to go on or this or, it sounds like a lot, but, the world's weird. Is it going to happen? And thankfully it did. There were some late substitutions on athletes. Trey Mitchell was called up. Kevin Ferris was called up. But in the end, we got 10 very formidable athletes. I liked the call-ups between, people like Trey Mitchell, Kevin Ferris, Maxime Boudreau, etc. Some of the younger guys, not as well-known guys, coming to compete and being given this platform for a lot of fans. Everyone follows Brian Shaw. He's about as big as it gets in strongman. Probably the most famous currently competing strongman there is by a long shot. So him putting on a show, using his social media, up on his website, his YouTube, talking about it, huge for these people to get seen on the world stage. And there's a lot that goes into this. So the contest wasn't a live stream. It was a they kind of recorded everything with a bunch of different cameras, cut it all up. Brian's, editing video guy, he's the MVP. James, that is a hard job to get all that done and be available to watch the next day. I can barely do these horribly shot YouTube videos and edit it, and I always mess them up. He's the MVP of this whole thing and deserves tons of credit. But enough with all of that. Let's get on to the show. The first event was a max log with a Slater log. I believe 6 or 7 athletes went over 400 pounds. Pretty much, no one was out at the start. Terry Hollins missed a lift. I think Adam Bishop was out at 380. Then it went on to 400. Novikov looked a little rusty. Jerry Pritchett, you could hear every bone in his body creaking as he strict pressed the thing, but he got it, and it was crazy. I believe, 440 or at 440, I believe, and then we went on. Even Kevin Ferris, super impressed with Kevin Ferris for getting an over 400 pound log. Look at his his frame and his body weight. I think he got 420. It's absolutely impressive. I'm going off of memory because one critique I have for how it was put together, and granted I just gave huge praise for how it was edited, but it just says the points for each event, and then the overall when they did it on on their video on the member site, it would have been nice if it had the weight and the times, etc., which it doesn't. So something to improve there. Maxime Boudreau, he had some sort of shoulder or tricep injury, I believe, at Worlds, so I don't think he was able to put on his full, just as good as he is. But he's still, he was kind of struggling with his balance a little bit, just looked slightly off on his log. He's really good, but still, was up there getting 440 pounds. Trey Mitchell, talk about his static strength has improved so much. Trey is geez, you're one of the statically strongest people in strongman now, which means in the world. And obviously we knew he's strong, he had stones, but and he's always been good at reps. Didn't always translate to his 1 rep max. And now he's putting up, 200 kilogram logs. We'll get to it later, but over 1,000 something on the Hummer tire deadlift. Just huge. In the last calendar year, his static strength has just went through the roof. Just incredible improvement. I think JF just missed, or these were maybe at 420. And then JF had a tough lockout, and then right after him, Brian went, I think it was either the 420, I think it was at 440, and he locked it out, but it was coming forward. You could tell in the commentary, Magnuson, a very strict ref, was like, I don't know if he got it, and I would agree with him there. It was borderline. I'd err towards that way. There was very competent judges there. It was up to them. They gave him the call. He got the lift. Brian got the points. Not to discredit him or anything, just my view on that event. Trey had a very good attempt at 455, and I think he was strong enough to press it. He just rushed the clean slightly, and it looked like he didn't get it quite like he had to fight his elbows to get high and in the right rack position, which is going to, gash you. But, it shot up. He just wasn't quite in the right position, and it was due to the clean. But Trey's looking like, if he keeps this up, we were always talking about Rob Kearney, Robert Oberst for an American record, Brian Shaw. Trey Mitchell might be the person to set the American log press record. He was very close at 455, which is just, not very far off the American record, which I believe is like 467. And, he was close. Luke Stoltman looked a little off on the log. We saw all his attempts at the world record. He was really close. Still won it with 455, kind of probably at about 80% of himself, doing an 80% of his max lift, but still enough to win. That's how good Luke is at the log. Then we went on to the super yoke, and it was an interesting setup. They went back, there and back. I was kind of like, it just kind of looked like people doing a yoke at a gym. Part of I'd say one of the downsides to this contest, and obviously it's to be expected because, you can't have public events. It was snowing. It just kind of looked like a bunch of people training in their gym. So it's like, is this a contest or is it just like a big training day? But one of the coolest things was also it just looked like a big training day. And, people got to see like 10 of the strongest men in the world basically do a training day. Very heavy weights, but it kind of just had that feel. It was like, depending on how you view it, it's like the coolest thing or the thing that needs to be improved. It's hard to say. That's up to you. But on the super yoke, Alexei Novikov absolutely crushed it. I think he did it in like 13 seconds, and the next closest was 19. JF Caron got in second, Brian Shaw third, Jerry Pritchett with a good run in 7. Maxime struggled, Kevin Ferris struggled, 2 of the smaller guys struggled. Adam Bishop looked pretty strong on it. But yeah, so going into after 2 events, not much to say on the super yoke. I think it was one of the more boring events of the thing. Not that it was bad, it's just there were so many cool events, it's just kind of like, Basically, Novikov's run was crazy impressive, and that's what I feel like needs to be reported on in that. And then, going in to, after the second event, we had Brian Shaw first with 16 points, Luke Stoltman with 14, Trey Mitchell with 14, Novikov 13.5, JF Caron 12.5. Then we moved on to the Farmers Frame Medley. This event was absolutely a brutal grip assault. We had, I believe, a 330 pound per hand Farmers into a 380 per hand Farmers, and then it looked like no one enjoyed, after doing those two, the 400 kilo / 880 pound frame, which is a very low pick, which I think was part of the issue. I believe Jerry Pritchett was the only person to not drop it, giving him 10 points. Brian Shaw looked really close and dropped it right before the line. Maybe had enough for the win. Don't know. I'd have to look at the times and kind of look back at it, but just right there. Maxime dropped it a couple times, but his foot speed is so good that didn't matter. Kevin Ferris got third in the event. He has a great grip. This came down to less of a speed event and more who has the best grip. And Jerry Pritchett was on top. Slightly surprised to see JF Caron in 5th, below Brian Shaw considering the grip. But I think he just kind of rushed the first 2. Jerry kind of took his time and didn't get too jacked up, knowing what had to be done. Novikov struggled with the grip, and that was something that's like, maybe he's just not quite required from Worlds. We saw kind of that. There's always that line where it's like someone's going to win if it's this light, But then if it gets this heavy, then it's harder for them. Maybe we saw that. He was also doing this on very short notice. So that was the end of the first day. And then the top three after that were Brian Shaw, 23 points, Jerry Pritchett, 22.5, JF Cron, 18.5, Maxime Boudreau, 18. And Novikov in fifth with 17. Day two, they went up, I think it was about 7,000 foot elevation. Brian Shaw's mountain home, started with the Hummer tire deadlift. And I was watching this on Sunday morning going, I didn't realize how much I missed the Hummer tire deadlift at the Arnold. Please bring it back. Let's get rid of the elephant bar for a little bit. And you saw how cool this was. I know Rogue was watching. They lent a lot of equipment and posted photos and everything of this. And they're like, the Arnold, they're like, I think we should bring back the Hummer tire deadlift. That's the main thing I got from this weekend is the Hummer tire deadlift maybe is the coolest deadlift setup in strongman, and it needs to be brought back to the Arnold. The elephant bar was cool, but it ain't the Hummer tire. Just a cool event. What's so cool about it is it's like the bar is alive and it's ever evolving. You saw people struggling, especially Novikov, when they had the 3 tires on there. And he did something on, I believe it was his 920 event, which I am so impressed with Novikov. He maybe didn't win the Hummer tire. He actually placed mid-pack getting 5th, but he maximizes every event. He's the smartest, most technically crafty and proficient person competing in strongman right now. And that is why he is world's strongest man. He did this thing where he pulled the slack out of the bar when it still had 3 tires on it and looked like he was attempting it, but I don't think he ever planned to lift it. And then he shot his hips back down under the bend and got a stretch reflex from dropping well loaded, and then went right back up with a little bit of bounce. Not bounce, but like some momentum from the tire and the bar decompressing, and then shot it up. It was beautiful. Some people might get really mad at that kind of stuff because it's like this borderline, when he's holding the straps and his fingertips down here and stuff. Little things like that. But that's the stuff I loved about Mariusz Pudzianowski. He'd always do that kind of stuff too. And I love when there's a competitor that does things in a certain way that then you get a rule named after you to prevent other people from doing so from the organization. And Novikov, by the time his career is over, is going to have a book full of rules about him. And it's why I love watching him compete. I will watch any contest he competes in. And he did like 50 in 1 year, so I got some watching to do. Send me those Ukrainian YouTube links. Anyways, Brian, I think, had a slight injury. Everyone, it was like 1040-ish. I don't really remember where it was at, 1060. I think it was 1060. Trey Mitchell got, I think, 1060 or 1080. Adam Bishop ended up in third. Then Jerry Pritchett and JF Caron battled it out. And JF Caron pulled the heaviest deadlift we've ever seen in strongman, regardless of height. It was 1,200 pounds. Holy wow. That was so incredible. One of the coolest things I've seen all year, all decade. It's a short decade, right? In strongman. JF is amazing. I've seen some talk on the internet of because there's a lot of the same people from Worlds Finals here, and it's different results. And the thing is, that's what's great about strongman. Where there's an 18-inch deadlift, and there's a Hummer tire, which I believe is about a 15-inch pick, but the bar does bend a lot. Especially once that 4th tire went on, it looks easier for some of the people. And you saw them adjusting, like every attempt, you put a little bit of weight, and the bar looked completely different to lift. Might have been easier, might have been harder. But it's just, you have to know how to adapt your strength to the moment. And some people are better at that than others. Jerry looked better as it went. Alexei looked better as it went until it didn't. And JF too. Like some people, they're like, oh, I'm learning this implement. And that's why strongman is so special compared to other more standardized sports. And that's why there needs to be a variety in strongman. And I loved this weekend to show stuff like that. You gotta really look at all those little details to appreciate strongman. But JF, heaviest pull. Jerry Pritchett, the intensity Jerry brings. I love it. I've seen Jerry around a lot of contests, and he's just such a great competitor. JF pulled off the win. going into that, Jerry took first place, picking up points over Brian, 31.5, 28.5, JF Cron 28.5, Alexei Novikov creeping up, fourth, 23 points. Then we went into the circus dumbbell. I believe it was 254, 252 pounds, a very heavy weight for reps, especially at that altitude. And JF got huge fourth rep to get. It was like there's a lot of people in like the 2 or 3 range. Then JF, I believe, got his fourth rep to get third place overall. And then I was so happy that these two got grouped together. We saw from Worlds 2019 when they went neck and neck, and it was between whoever got that, between Brian Shaw and Alexei Novikov. Whoever won that circus dumbbell at 2019 World's Strongest Man's would win the group and go to the finals, and Brian beat Novikov by 1 rep. And Novikov came out like a man possessed. He just went and he put up a ferocious pace that no one thought he would be able to keep up, and he did. And he ended up getting 1 more rep than Brian Shaw in the 75 seconds, and it took a lot out of him, and it meant a lot too, knowing that they, went head to head. They were by far the 2 best. I think they got 8 and 7. Very impressive reps with that weight. So that was the highlight of that. And Novikov gave it a little extra to try to be like, hey, you got me in 19, but now it's 2020. Very heavy set. You could tell everyone is exhausted, especially being up at altitude. There were some very impressive runs. I think Trey Mitchell was the first person to load all 6 Atlas stones, which ended at about 450 pounds. He looked strong. Then Brian Shaw just went out and decimated everything. No offense, but everyone else looked a little tired. JF Cron ended up in 3rd, Alexei Novikov in 4th. And at the end of the day, also what happened on the circus dumbbell, Jerry Pritchett was not able to lift it and got 0 points. If you had any other event than circus dumbbell, he might have ended up winning on the day, but 0 points, you're not going to win a show. It dropped in way too many. And Brian Shaw ends up winning the Brian Shaw Classic. I made this trophy, I keep this trophy. He gives out all the prize money. I think it was over $50,000 in prize money. And, he paid for all the expenses, everything. Hopefully got a good amount of members to sign up that stay signed up and making this lucrative for him so he can put on future contests. The more contests, the better. The more opportunities for everyone, and the better for us fans. Overall, great show. Couple things, everything considering the circumstance, I know it's a very small team and they haven't done it, they haven't done this before. It was great. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I might do a Q&A just answering individual questions. So if you have them, drop them below and I'll make it in a future video. Brian Shaw ends up winning with JF Cron taking 2nd, Alexei Novikov climbing back into 3rd place, and Trey Mitchell ends up in 4th. So Trey got 3rd place money. That is huge for Trey. He's one of the younger up-and-coming pros. One of my favorites. Been seeing him compete forever since he was an amateur. Jerry Pritchett in 5th with that tough break on the circus dumbbell. Adam Bishop 6th. Luke Stoltman 7th. Maxime Boudreau 8th. Kevin Ferris 9th. And Terry Hollins, who is injured, in 10th. Hope he heals up soon. I'm Kalle Beck. Let me know what you thought of the show and any questions you have for me in the comments below, and thanks for watching.